Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about how a change in management at a bus depot led to an unintended consequence for the new owners. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. One good turn deserves another, or in this case, prevents one. My friends live in a house that's in front of a bus depot, entrance one side, exit the other. For years, with permission of the owner, they park their cars beside the house along a wide part of the exit for the depot. It was convenient, and friendly relations meant my neighbors did not complain when diesel engines fired up in the early morning hours to warm up outside their bedroom windows. Couple decades later, the business is taken over by a national chain, and with that comes a number of changes. New, tall fences that obstruct views, gates on the entrance and exit, more buses stored that require more maneuverings, and more young, underexperienced drivers. When moving buses, they regularly clipped a fence post, moving them from the exit to the entrance of the depot. The road was narrow with a big hedge on the other side. It was not a task to perform carelessly. After a couple of broken fences, eventually the wooden post was replaced with a sturdy, reinforced concrete equivalent, and the driver stopped hitting it in a hurry. Another change that came down the pipe shortly after, the owners required my friends to stop parking on the depot grounds. They wanted the space for their own staff. After asking if there was other space that would be acceptable, they were told in no uncertain terms that the cars were not to be on the property at all under any circumstances. Cue malicious compliance. And with it, the dawning realization for management that there was a reason the previous owner had been so accommodating, because now they park their cars outside the front of the house instead, as the law does not allow for parking on the sidewalk. They must be parked on the road proper, so they absolutely block about half the narrow road. Consequently, the long buses could no longer pull out from the exit and turn across the house without hitting the cars. If they needed to go on a route in that direction or just pull a bus around to the entrance, they now have to turn the other way and drive a couple of miles around country lanes instead. The impact was felt immediately. The depot's managers called the police to complain about the obstruction. The police not only confirmed that the cars are parked legally, but that they must not obstruct the sidewalk, so they could not be parked closer in. Management also petitioned the local council to have that part of the road designated for no parking, but that has so been fought off successfully. Corporations don't seem to be able to look past the upcoming quarter these days. And our second story. Lady decides I need to help her and her son load a dresser because I'm parked 2 spots away from them. So today I'm at Costco getting my meds, minding my own business. A lady and her son bought one of the dressers that Costco's selling. Fine, all good. They actually look pretty good. Mom decides that the 2 of them can get it in the car and refuses to help, despite the 2 of them basically being the living embodiments of sticks. I mean, anything's possible, right? We all made it out through the queue to get outside, and they're about 8 to 10 steps behind me. Mom and son are bickering because son knows she's not strong enough to lift aside. Mom won't have it. I get closer to my car, only to find a young family struggling with a little 2-year-old refusing to go in its seat. Inconvenient, given it's 95 before the heat-reflecting properties of asphalt. But whatever, and I'm not in a rush. Kids will be monsters if they will be. Mom and son try to lift the dresser to no dice, and to my immense humor. I've had to deal with her at work before, and she isn't the nicest person. Sadly, she recognized me at some point and demands I get over here and help my son load this. I pretended not to hear her and went about watching this child just F with his dad trying to buckle him in. 10 for 10 would watch again with popcorn. Mom decides to tap my shoulder to get my attention. Cue, help my son load this dresser again. No, as my answer isn't taken well, and she had a freak-out moment, even so far as to threaten to return the tree she bought from us because I was being rude. Good luck with that, lady. You and your son can't lift a 150-pound dresser. Good luck lifting that 800-pound autumn blaze maple that's now had plenty of time to root in. I finally look at the son and see his obvious shame that his mom is acting a lot like the 2-year-old not wanting to go into the car seat. Agree to help the kid so long as mom doesn't touch it because she'll tip the box too much. Gotta keep in mind I'm 6'2" with a 6'6" wingspan. I know, effing monkey arms, and a bit of a brute from shifting many 300 to 700 pound trees by hand. We lift the dresser into the truck bed without too much issue, despite the fact that I took about all the weight. Mom then decided I need to follow them home to help offload the dresser. Hell no, lady, hell no. It was a big enough of a I don't work here lady moment to even load the thing, let alone ending up back at your house to offload it. The dad finally managed to get the baby buckled up, and I hopped in my car and drove off. Ended up that she called my job to complain that I was rude and not helpful. Sales staff know I'm off on Mondays, my only day off after all, and asked what about. Lady, I guess, decided to admit that she was trying to bully me into helping her, and it got laughed off. Can't wait to see what comes of this. So let me get this straight. She knew you didn't work there, wanted you to follow her home, then called your real job and tried to complain? I honestly cannot fathom what it must feel like to be this stupid and entitled. And our next story. Make me wait for my refund? Okay. About 8 years ago, I moved out of my folks' place and into my first home. As a newbie, I was thrown into the lovely world of utilities companies and their arcane Byzantine processes for creating new accounts. One service that was vital for my new place was phone and broadband. For this, I looked around, and despite a lot of difficulties with them at work, I went for a package from the largest provider in the country. If I say this company was British and I was buying telecoms from them, you should guess who I mean. Mainly due to the free gifts they were offering if you signed up, gift cards for a large supermarket. Fast forward a couple of years, and my initial contract came to an end, and I decided to move over to another supplier, now unfortunately borged into the big evil corp mentioned above, but still many times better. I knew that I was out of contract at this point and wouldn't be charged anything for leaving, so happily signed up for the new service. This is where things went a bit awry. The changeover happened as expected mid-month in July. A quick reconfig of my router setting, and I was done and saving a bit of money every month. Being the reasonably tidy administrator I am, I canceled Big Telco's direct debit from my bank account after this point, as I should no longer be charged, and I didn't want them to remain with authority for taking payment from my account. Unfortunately, Big Telco's billing system didn't seem to get the memo that my services had transferred, and not only did they send me a bill for $52.07 for phone and broadband they didn't supply, but as I canceled their direct debit, they charged me $7.50 late payment fee on top of that. I, of course, immediately complained about this, and my complaints got escalated up the chain until I was assigned a complaint handler at Big Telco. Eventually, after much prodding and complaining, Big Telco worked out that instead of me owing them $52.08, it turns out they owed me $17.31. Buoyed by this news, I planned on spending my $17.31 on beer, chips, crisps, and whatever else a single man needs to survive in this workday world. After a few days, I get a check in the post from Big Telco. The problem was that this check was for $9.81, not my outstanding $17.31. It seems that the billing department hadn't cleared the late payment charge from my account, so the check was $7.50 light, which meant yet another call to the handler at Big Telco. She eventually managed to send out a second check for the missing $7.50. At this point, I decided a bit of petty revenge was in order. The complaint handler at Big Telco had asked after the checks had been dispatched if they could now close the complaint. Not being in a particularly charitable mood, I said I'd let them close the complaint only after both checks had cleared and the funds were in my account. Now, I wasn't petty enough to pay them in separately, but it still took 3 to 5 days for the funds to clear, and as it was the end of the month, that would be one less successful completion on their books for that month. And our last story. So one of my brothers is adopted and is amazing. He didn't get anything handed to him in life, and he's seriously one of the hardest working people I know. Just as he was starting his own family, he had even more financial burden due to some medical problems. Still, somehow, he managed to build half a house on some land my dad sold him. He used the equity in that to get a second loan and finish it. He had to fight the bank for that even. Time goes on and he begins to do really well. So he sells the first house he built at a profit and buys some land. Like 175 acres in the Midwest. He lives in a rural area. He likes to hunt and does some farming on the land, but the house that was there when he bought it isn't ideal, despite some major improvements and renovation. So he builds a third house and puts the house up for sale. He keeps the land around the house for hunting. This is important later. This is when one of his envious family members asks if he and his wife would consider selling them the house. They can only qualify for something like half of what it's worth, but my brother's a fairly generous guy and agrees to sell the house to them at a rather hefty discount since they're family. I'm sure he felt some of their pain as well. He'd had his own difficulty back when he was starting out. The bank agrees to loan them the money. They can't go wrong. It's for way less than the property's worth, and the deal is done. A few short months go by. He's driving by the property and spots a for sale sign. He stops in and the husband explains that there were some things about the house they weren't happy with, so they were planning on selling it and buying a house more in town or something, etc. My brother explains that they got a sweet deal only because they were family and that he'd appreciate them selling the house back to him for what he sold it to them for. The husband basically closes the door on that, and my brother leaves. And he thinks about it. I'm 100% certain that the family members understood that they were getting a good deal because they were family, and he was happier selling it to them with the understanding that they weren't going to take advantage of his good graces. This is a guy, by the way, that manages big projects. He's a really fair guy. The stuff he does in construction, probably half of you have driven over. Big bridges that go over rivers like the Mississippi, for example. He's used to solving hard problems. This one isn't that hard. The next day, he drives out with some fence in the back of his truck, and the family members in the house wake up to some fence posts being driven into the ground. The husband comes out. "What's going on?" he asks. "Just putting up some hog fence on my property. Don't worry, it's all on my land. I'll just go around your house here and put in a gate so you can get in and out." The husband's a bit perplexed. "You're bringing in pigs?" And my brother was seriously set to do it, too. He had about 100 lined up from a farmer down the road. The husband goes back into the house. A few minutes of discussion occur. The next day, they all meet at the bank, and the deed is transferred back to my brother. And he didn't even have to deploy the hogs. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.